You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Welcome back to the Hella Well with Danielle podcast, your weekly mental vacay for the busy woman of color who's on her healing journey and just needs a little help. I know this was supposed to be our next episode in the Hella Relax series, but I had to do something different this week. If you haven't heard the news, Stephen Twitch Boss, who was one of the contestants on So You Think You Can Dance, he was on the Ellen show, he was just this amazing guy, died last week by suicide. And this topic has been on my heart for a bit, especially with the holidays. And so I'm doing a small pause in between the Hella Relax series. We'll get back to it next week. So just go into the new year by ending the 5-part series. But I thought this conversation was so important that I didn't want to wait until January. This wasn't something that needed to wait until January, especially during the holiday season when that's when a lot of people are not doing well. And so I wanted to have this conversation about suicide. I want to talk about it. I feel like it's something that we act like it doesn't exist. We talk about it in the way like, oh my God, like I can't believe someone commits suicide. They committed suicide as if they committed a crime. And as someone who has attempted to commit suicide, I wanted to have this conversation about not only the fact that it's crazy the way that we talk about suicide. I want to talk about how does a person get to this space, talk about what suicide in the Black community, and I want to talk about options because sometimes therapy isn't available for everyone. So this is what today's conversation is about. It's a little bit different, but I think it's an important one. If you're new to the show, every episode, I like to start with just tuning in and getting into the space that we're all here. So especially for this topic, I just want us to take a moment to close our eyes, sit up tall, just begin noticing your breath, whether you're noticing the inhale with your breathing through your nose, you're noticing your chest rising or your stomach moving in and out. Just begin to settle in and to begin to tell all the noise around you to have several seats. This is your time, the small amount of time. This is your mental vacay for you to work on your own healing. Begin to take a long, deep breath through your nose, breathing deep, 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 deep. And exhale, exhaling it all out. One more time, inhale deeply, deep, deep, deep. Exhaling it all out. I'm going to do it one last time, making this one count. Inhaling deeply, seeing the air go all the way to the top of your head. Then like it's on an elevator, exhaling, allowing all the air to release out of your body. And just take a moment just to see how you feel. If you need to breathe into certain parts of your body that might feel tense, maybe it's your shoulders, your neck, maybe your chest is having some tension, knowing about the topic. I invite you, if anything of this topic feels triggering, just take a moment, pause what I'm saying, and just breathe. Tap back into your breathing. Whether you're breathing in and out of your mouth, breathing in and out of your nose. I recommend breathing in and out of your nose, just kind of slowing the breath down, but just whatever you choose, whatever works for you. If you need a moment in the midst of this conversation, I want you to honor what your body is saying. I want to honor what the inner child may be saying, because this topic isn't an easy topic, but it's one that needs to be had. If you haven't already, I invite you to open your eyes and let's get into it. Surviving suicide. Suicide. This is a topic that I've run from, and I can tell I'm already getting emotional about talking about it, but I think about Twitch. who was everything. Not saying like everything to me, but I love dancing, and one of my favorite shows has always been So You Think You Can Dance. Granted, this last episode season, I definitely threw a lot of mad shade, not at him, but at the other judges, because I'm like, why are you a judge? But the show and his dancing, every time you saw him, if you knew anything about this guy, he was smiling, he was dancing, he was joyful. Like he literally embodied love and joy. He had a beautiful family, 3 kids with another So You Think You Could Dance fellow dancer. Her name was Allison. And from looking outside, he had the perfect life. Everything looked good. Like him and his wife just recently, posted on TikTok. They were celebrating their ninth wedding anniversary. The week that, he died from suicide, he posted a video of him just dancing, having fun. And I've been reading the comments, and that's what got me to do this episode, was reading the comments that people are writing. They're like, I'm so confused, someone wrote. I saw many people write that, but like one person literally did a reel or a TikTok, I can't remember where it was, and said, I'm so confused. He had it all. And I want to start this conversation by saying there ain't no stereotype for suicide. There isn't this person looks this way, so they must be someone who would possibly commit suicide. There isn't a stereotype. There isn't a look. There isn't common traits to look for. And if you're seeing someone, there's so many of us, and myself included, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, are really good at wearing a mask. We wear masks that are so strong and so thick that you can't see what's going on behind someone. And we couldn't see what the pain and the issues and the challenges that Twitch was going through behind the mask, behind the dancing, behind the smiles. And there's many people that look just like him, that look like me, that look like anyone you can imagine, is potential of someone wanting to commit suicide. It's potential of someone wanting not to be here. Potential of someone being like, life is such a struggle that I don't think I got it in me. It could be something as simple as, you're having a rough time at work. You're having a rough time paying the bills. You had your father or your mother or someone you love deeply pass, and you're like, I don't think I can get through this. And especially in this holiday season, when there's this need to show your love by spending all this money, your need to be with family, when sometimes it's a reminder that I don't have anyone. It's a reminder that I feel alone in this world. This conversation needs to be had because there's so many people out there that are wearing masks. You don't know what's going on behind. And I feel like that's what was going on with Twitch. Like we just didn't know from looking in from what he was posting, because, social media is a great, fabulous reel of your highlights reel of what's going on in your life. He wasn't posting the pain that he was going through. He wasn't posting that he was in a place where he was struggling so hard, even though it looked like, quote unquote, he had it all together. And I want to talk about the fact that how we talk about suicide is freaking whack. We say, they committed suicide, like it's a crime. And it goes back to that stigma of suicide being this crime. Because yes, I know in the Bible it says not to commit suicide and it's a crime and you're not going to go to heaven. But that stigma that is placed on it doesn't help the situation. And then you have it where it's like, he was successful or he was unsuccessful. I was unsuccessful at committing suicide. So, okay, think of how that feels if you're at the point in your life where you want to let go and be gone from this earth. And then you try, and then you're quote unquote unsuccessful. The guilt, the shame, the anxiety, the anger, the frustration that comes with even trying and not being quote unquote successful. There's a lot that goes into that we don't talk about. And we don't talk about what it is going on in someone's mind. Like I can say from my perspective, I tried to commit suicide more than once. One time was so bad that, and these are all years ago, but still part of my life, part of my history, that the last time, which was about 15 years ago, I almost died. Somehow, from the grace of God, my ancestors, my like whoever was looking out for my butt, I got to the hospital in time to have a 50-50 chance. That's what they said. They're like, we're not sure. She has a 50-50 chance of surviving. She has a 50-50 chance of being successful at committing suicide, or a 50-50 chance of being unsuccessful committing suicide. And I'm lucky to be here. And I don't think it's luck because I know it's fake, because I know that God, universe, source, ancestors are like, nah, sis, this ain't your time. You have more things you need to do. I need to be here for conversations like this. I need to be here to help other people to heal through yoga, through Reiki, and all these different things. I would have never done any of those things had I been able to complete my attempt in suicide. And oftentimes when I don't think people think, oh, he was so selfish, or she's so selfish to want to just end it all. You struggle when you're going through these moments of like trying to be there for your family, trying to stay there for your friends and family, when oftentimes you need to be here for you. But if you're holding on for your friends and family and that's what's getting you through, then go for that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is that, how do we get to this place? How do people get to this place, especially in the Black community, when suicide is on the rise? Suicide between 2014 and 2019, it has increased. Suicides by Black Americans has increased by 30%. 30% more. And this is 2019. This is pre George Floyd. This is pre all the different things that have gone on, in America, that the microaggressions, the Karens, this is all pre a lot of that stuff, pre-pandemic. So I know the numbers are probably even higher in the midst of having this loneliness time during the pandemic, having all these microaggressions that we deal with being magnified on a level that is kind of surreal, but it is our life. But in the Black community, we don't talk about suicide. Nah, suicide and depression is like this bad stigma that we don't talk about. We don't talk about it because it's like you don't want to be deemed as not strong enough. And that was one of the things for me. It was like, I felt like, oh my God, I can't say I'm struggling, because if I say I'm struggling, that means I'm not a strong Black woman. To need help and feel like I don't want to be here felt like I was weak. And I couldn't tell people I was weak because I had to play the role. I had to be strong. I had to persevere. Like, if my relatives and ancestors made it through slavery, how can I not make it through this time? So we hide what we're going through. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about mental health. Mental health is not something that we talk about. Black Americans are less likely to get mental health care, period. I think it's like 25% of African Americans are willing to seek mental health compared to 40% of white Americans. There's a difference, but what we don't talk about is that mental health ain't cheap. Mental health is not cheap. There's unequal access to healthcare in the Black community. So you add in the fact that there's a stigma of being like in need, the stigma of struggling, the stigma of suicide, the stigma of depression. You add in the fact that there is a unequal amount of access to healthcare. You add in the fact that mental health care ain't cheap. Then you add in all the struggles of microaggression, racism, trying to survive in America just alone. It makes it hard. And Let me not forget also the chronic levels of stress that we go through on a day-to-day basis. It's a lot. It's a lot. And there's points where people are like, I can't do it anymore. I've tried and I've tried and I've held on, and we wear the mask. We put on more makeup on the mask to make the mask look better so no one knows what we're going through. Why inside we are deeply dying and struggling, and the hole just keeps bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is something that many people of color, not just Black Americans, but people of color, people in general go through. But especially in today's society, people of color are not doing well, but are hiding. They're putting on their highlight reel on social media saying that I'm good, look at me, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. And so I wanted to have this conversation to explain why someone like Twitch, why someone like me, who quote unquote is doing good, has it all, they look like they're doing fine, can commit suicide, could want to commit suicide, could want to not be here. These are some things that we have to talk about. We need, when you have these conversations and are able to bring it to light, I think that this helps. The other thing that I don't think people talk about is, I call it the comeback shame. Once it's interesting. Coming back from a suicide attempt is rough. It's rough. Being able to have people now know that I wasn't doing good, that I was struggling, and that I wanted not to be here. The shame and the guilt of surviving a suicide attempt is real. The shame and the guilt of feeling that, dang, I couldn't even get that right. At the time that I felt like I wanted to no longer be here, I was mad in the state of wanting to be perfect. I was trying to do it all and realized I couldn't. I'm like, well, if I can't, it's just time to end this. And then when I tried, like having friends know, having family, I didn't want to go around family anymore. I didn't want people to see me anymore, which made me make myself more in a state of being alone because I was too ashamed and felt too guilty to be around people who knew that what had happened to me. And it took years. It took years for me getting to a point where I can talk about it. I can talk about it and say that, hey, yeah, I tried to commit suicide. It was in a rough time of my life. It was both times were right after a major surgery. And I realized that it just coincided with a bunch of different things. My body hormones were off and I did what I did. And it's a part of my story. It's a part of my story because I had to get to that bottom to get to where I am now. I'm not saying I probably couldn't have got to where I am now without that, but it was the journey in the path that I was destined to go through. And I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that I reached out to a friend in the midst of all this who was smart enough to call someone else who called someone else who called the police, who got the paramedics there and got me to the hospital in time to have that 50-50 chance. But not everyone has that. So I wanted to talk about also, like, what do you do? Like, how do you get help? What are our options? If you can't afford to go see a psychiatrist, which I'm a strong believer in seeing a psychologist, a therapist in general, just a therapist. Seeing a therapist is everything. If you can't afford to see a therapist, go to Google. Google, I know it sounds crazy and I know it has a lot of different things, but there's a lot of great free resources of information on Google. If you're not doing well, call 988. 988 is the suicide and crisis line. It's free. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's a number. So you have Google as a resource for different information that, like, to help you get through if you can't afford to see a therapist. There's also group therapy. If you can't afford to see a therapist on your own, look into group therapy. Focus in on the things that give you joy, that make you happy. Focus on releasing the joy killers, whether that's a person, whether that's a habit, whether it's an environment you're in, whatever you can release and remove yourself from, those are ways to start to look for help. And how do you help someone who may be going through one of these moments, who may be a Twitch, who may be a me, who you see as a strong person? Check on them. Don't just assume, oh, well, Twitch looked fine, so, I'm not going to ask him how is he doing, and ask him really, how are you really doing? Those strong friends of yours, those are the ones who need you the most, because those are the ones that are neglected. Those are the ones everyone's like, oh, she's good, she's got it, she don't need any help. No, we all need someone. We all are going through something, no matter how strong someone looks. They are going through something. And it would be amazing for them to have someone say, hey, I just want to see how you're doing. But on that flip side, don't wear the mask if someone asks you. If someone says, hey, how you doing? It is okay to say, I'm not okay. It is okay to say, I am struggling. It is okay to say, I need help. I need help. I can't do this on my own. It is okay. I want you to honor this, honor you. It's time for us to reframe mental health. It's time for us to reframe what suicide is and how we talk about it. Stop saying they committed suicide like it was a crime. Stop saying, oh, someone was successful or unsuccessful as if it was a perfection contest. Start realizing that it ain't easy being Black in America. Start realizing that not every smile doesn't mean that there's some pain deep down inside that someone's hiding. Start realizing that the rise of suicide in our community is real. And it takes all of us as a collective to work on healing our community so we can thrive and not just survive. I love you. I hope this conversation helps someone. If you know someone who's in need of help, especially during this time of the year, please check on them, love on them. Just let them know that you're here. Just say, I just want you to know that I love you and I'm thinking of you and I'm here. I love you. You're worthy of everything you desire. And I'll see you next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.